Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week. We're here every Sunday at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m. to give you the real story behind the big stories, and a lot to get to this week, so let's take a look. First, Mississippi mud. There's more mud being slung around Mississippi that by the time Tuesday comes around, I think every voter will need boots to get to the polling precincts. We'll talk about the waning days of the hotly contested race for governor. Runoff controversy. The Shelby County Election Commission under fire for having just one early voting precinct open for the two city council races having runoffs, although low voter turnout may offer one explanation. We'll talk about the $1 million prize Shelby County says it will give the University of Memphis with some preconditions. And Shelby County's Department of Corrections chief under fire for where he lives. Later in my one-on-one segment, David Williams with Leadership Memphis will be here, but we start today with my round table. We have Local 24 political analyst and commentator Otis Sanford and political consultant Susan Adler-Thorpe with Thorpe Communications. Thanks, you two, for being here. Let's talk about this Mississippi race, shall we? We only got a few days left to talk about it, thank heavens, because these commercials have gotten pretty bad. Yeah. Let's set things up by just showing where things stand now. Let's show the ad against Tate Reeves first.
Traveling Tate Reeves, a state limo, a state plane, a taxpayer-paid junket to a rock concert, and Mardi Gras. Reeves even had a state trooper guard him on a Louisiana fishing boat at taxpayers' expense. Like someone is going to come out of the Gulf and get him?
I bait my own hook, carry my own gun, and drive my own truck. Our state troopers shouldn't have to be out hauling politicians on vacation. They should be protecting you. As governor, I'll work for you.
Otis, you take this one, because this brings up a column, I think. I remember seeing you write about this race. Jim Hood doesn't sound like a Democrat, does
he? No, he does not. In any other state, that would have been a classic Republican ad. You've got somebody driving a pickup truck with a gun on their waist, and certainly, I think he says he drives his own truck and he baits his own hook. Yeah, that's classic GOP language there. But that's what he's trying to do here, Richard. He obviously feels that diehard Democrats in Mississippi are going to vote for him because they're certainly not going to vote for a Republican. He's going after that moderate Republican, if there are any in Mississippi, probably more so the disaffected Trump voter in Mississippi who may be tired of that. That's who he's trying to appeal to, and he's not even mentioning the word Democrat anywhere.
However, Tate Reeves is mentioning that word.
Oh, yeah.
Let's watch that.
January 20, 2017, Donald Trump takes office and Democrats take to the street to demand he be removed from office. 10 days later, liberal attorneys general went to court to block Trump's agenda on border security. Jim Hood was with the liberals. Hood took Trump to court, but he refused to challenge Obama even one time. Now liberals are impeaching Trump. Do you stand with our president and Tate Reeves, or with the liberals and Jim Hood? Mississippi, it's time to choose.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that didn't mince words, or images for that matter.
No, and you know, having Trump's endorsement this past week, with Trump coming down to Mississippi to help out Tate Reeves, is going to help him a big deal, a lot. And yeah, and it will turn out some voters that before thought, why should I bother to go vote? I'll go vote for Reeves because he's a Trump man. You know, the problem is nobody is benefiting from these ads, in all due respect, except for the television stations that are profiting from the income that comes from all these advertising. But negative advertising works. Sadly, it does work. And a perfect example to tell you about is in the Republican primary when Diane Black here in Tennessee ran against Randy Boyd and Bill Lee, and Black and Boyd went after each other, cutthroat, and Bill Lee just came right up the middle. I think in Mississippi there would be people looking for that middle space, and you were talking about the moderate Republican who might go over to Jim Hood, but there is no middle space. These two are going to take each other down to the mat, and I suspect that because of Trump's appearance last week, Tate Reeves will win it.
We talked last week about the poll that says there's 3 points separating these two guys, but you don't think Hood has much of a chance?
It's going to be very difficult for him to do it. And I had said earlier that a heavy turnout, especially among African Americans, could help, well, certainly would help Jim Hood. But Tate Reeves has been saying, and I don't have any reason to refute it, that a real heavy turnout would probably benefit him. Because there's just so many more Republican voters in Mississippi than there are Democrats. And you look at that ad, the favorite person for the Republicans to beat up on has always been Nancy Pelosi. Now they have a new one in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They have her in the ad screaming and you know, sounding kind of wild.
And they've got Bernie Sanders.
And they got Bernie Sanders in there as well. So that's typical playbook for Republican campaigns, but it works in a lot of places. Mississippi is one place where it does work.
And we'll find out on Tuesday night. So let's talk about the other election that's underway, and that's the early voting part of the election for the runoff in the two Memphis City Council races that had runoffs going on, Districts 1 and District 7. Some controversy over the Shelby County Election Commission. Again, it seems to happen every election, over how many early voting sites were open. Initially, it was just 1 for several days, and now, of course, there are 5 that are open. Legitimate gripe here, or what do you think?
Well, I think that is a fairly legitimate gripe in that if the Election Commission was only going to open 1 at the beginning, it should not have been downtown. Now, I know that's easy for them because that's where their headquarters are, and so that made it very convenient for them. But if you're only going to do 1, put it out somewhere centrally located in that community. You know, Districts 1 and 7 are not all that far apart. They kind of overlap there. So you could have put it somewhere in North Memphis or in Frazier, and that, I think, would have appeased somebody. But now, with it being downtown for the first 7 days, you had people like the supporters of Rhonda Logan and Michael and Easter Thomas saying that it benefited the people who are already on the city council. There was a little validity to that in my opinion.
Plus, it raises the question, too, Susan, about, you know, these runoffs for Memphis City Council districts. You know, are they too expensive and worth it anyway? We know the instant runoff voting is a dead issue right now, but it does raise the question about, you know, that's a lot of money and effort for 18 people voting in some days.
Well, I would argue, and I've argued this before on the show, that I don't think you can put a price tag on our right to vote. I think that whatever it costs, people have the right to go to the polls and cast their vote. Unfortunately, not enough people take advantage of that right. But, you know, this is an age-old argument, this community. We've argued this before, that the Election Commission on the first day of early voting for the first week puts it downtown, and people from all the way in East Memphis to Frazier to Whitehaven, they've argued and screamed, open them all. Open all early voting sites on early voting day. Why not? People say, well, it's too costly, it costs too much money. I've been in government, and I've watched it, and I'm going to tell you something. If you want the money, you can find
the money.
You can find the money.
I agree with that.
All right, good point. So we'll leave it there. When we come back, we're going to talk about the $1 million carrot that the Shelby County Commission and mayor are dangling in front of the University of Memphis. We'll talk about that right after this.
To the outside world, you look good, but you don't feel good. With polycythemia vera, PV, symptoms can change so slowly over time, you might not notice. But new or changing symptoms can mean your PV is changing. Let's change the way we see PV. You track and discuss blood counts with your doctor, but it's just as vital to discuss changing symptoms as well. Take notice and take action. Discuss counts and symptoms with your doctor. Visit takeactionpv.com.
Biological Services, you can earn up to $500 in your first month of donating plasma. Every donor is required to provide a valid ID along with proof of Social Security number. The process is similar to donating blood and is a very safe and comfortable procedure.
Help yourself while helping others.
Only you can provide life-saving medications for others. Please call us today at one of our locations to find out more on donating plasma.
2 guys, 1 accident. Jim believed what the insurance adjuster told him. Now Jim's got nothing. Bob was a skeptic. He knew he needed somebody to stand up and fight for him to get him every dollar he deserved. Have you been injured in an accident? Do you need somebody to fight for you? Pick up the phone and call me now. JMB 888-WE-FIGHT. 888-WE-FIGHT.
It may be a time of thanks and giving, but many Mid-South families are still going hungry. 1 in 5 Mid-South children is at risk of food insecurity. That's why we want you to join Local 24 Cares and the Mid-South Food Bank Tuesday, November 5th for Turkey Truck Tuesday. We'll be at the Kroger in Germantown at 7735 Farmington Boulevard all day collecting your donations. Make a difference this season to Mid-South families in need and help put an end to hunger.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Our new developments in the ongoing story about the amount of money, $1 million, that the Shelby County Commission has promised to the University of Memphis to finish a new pool complex on campus there. I already gave the school $1 million for this project, but is withholding the second $1 million of that, contingent upon some concrete plan now for the university to make sure all of its workers make at least $15 an hour, the living wage. And of course, this is a big issue for County Mayor Lee Harris. Many on the County Commission agree as well, but he stepped it up a little bit more this week by saying, we're not going to give you the money unless there's something in writing, more than just a verbal plan here. Susan, you take this one first. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that Mayor Harris's intent is good. I really do. I think that we all want people to make a living wage. It's only fair. I want the people in the county to make a living wage, work for the county. I want the people at the University of Memphis and all over Memphis. But I think Mayor Harris is walking on kind of a slippery slope right here. Because what does he want the university to do? He wants them to come out and say, we guarantee that we're going to pay everyone a minimum wage by next year. Well, where's the money going to come from? Now, I just said in the earlier segment that when you're in government, you can find the money. But this isn't, the university isn't only funded through government. And, you know, what are you going to do? Raise tuition in a community such as Memphis? That would be a very hard thing to do. Meanwhile, he ties this $1 million to the swimming area, to the swimming pool, and this program to teach children how to swim. So who gets hurt from this? Is the university? They're not going to really get hurt from it. It's the children, the kids who want to learn how to swim, who need to learn how to swim, and they're the ones who benefit from this program. And he's tying his desire to get minimum wage to what would benefit these children. I think his intent is good. I think his approach is wrong.
Otis, I know you work for the university, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I do, and we need to make full disclosure of that. I'm a full-time employee at the university and do a lot around the campus other than just teach journalism. The only thing I'll say about this is that I think Mark Billingsley made a good point last week when he said we have to be careful about this because the county provides a lot of other grants to a lot of other entities and nonprofits and institutions around the county. And if they're going to demand that the University of Memphis has everybody at $15 an hour, well then what are you going to do with a nonprofit that may have a custodial worker that they're not paying $15 an hour? So you got to be careful about that. You got to look at the equity behind that. I think that was a valid argument. You brought up the point that they gave the first $1 million without that kind of stipulation. Now they're giving the second $1 million with this stipulation. I think there was a little bit of inequity around that. Those are the only two issues that I will bring to this discussion.
Do you hurt some of your position on this when your own government, your own government agencies still have not formulated a solid plan for paying your own workers $15 an hour? Shelby County government wants to do it, and I'm sure they'll accomplish that as well, but it seems a little rich to me to demand that of the university when your own county government hasn't been able to accomplish that.
Well, I think that Mayor Harris got a boost from his argument on Friday when CBU came out and said that they're going to pay the minimum wage of $15 an hour, and it's only going to cost CBU $160,000 a year. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot of money in government circles, but the University of Memphis is at least 10 times bigger than CBU, maybe 20 or 30 times. Well, if you want to put it in simple terms, multiply that $160,000 just by 10. That's $1.6 million a year for the university. Once you raise salaries, and again, I'm of the belief that everyone should make a living wage. But once you raise salaries, you're raising benefits. And somebody has to pay those benefits, those retirement benefits, a share of health care benefits. So it's a very, very complicated proposition, especially for an institution as large as a university. But I still think there's a better way to do this than to tie that $1 million grant to that would benefit the most vulnerable among us, and that's the children.
Getting tight on time, I want to make sure we pay a little bit of attention to another story this week, and that is the residency requirement for the head of Shelby County's Department of Corrections. We learned this week that employees of the Department of Corrections actually hired a private investigator to prove that Anthony Alexander does not live in Shelby County and spends all of his time in Tipton County. Well, apparently this has come up before, and when they've looked at it, they said no, he actually does have an apartment in Shelby County. The utilities are in his name. His car is registered here. I believe he's registered to vote in Shelby County. It just raises a bigger question of how on earth do you really truly enforce the residency requirement?
Well, and that's been the issue, not just with people of that employment, but we've had that issue in terms of politicians running for office for years, haven't we, Susan?
Absolutely.
We've seen that over and over again. I remember Joe Kent way back in the day.
We have it going on right now with one or two politicians.
Well, that's right. It happens all the time. But the broader issue here is we need to continue to have this debate about whether county employees and city employees, especially at that level, this is a pretty high-ranking level here, should they live in the county where they're working, where they are getting taxpayer money to work. That needs to be a healthy debate here, and looks like it's going to head to the voters again. I'm on record as saying that I think that, especially where police and sheriff deputies are concerned, they do need to live in Shelby County. I just don't think that we should have somebody living down in Byhalia or living out in Benton County, Mississippi, and coming to Memphis and policing in Orange Mound and South Memphis and Frazier. I just don't think that that's right.
Well, it also raises a question, too, about are there some morale issues within the Department of Corrections? If employees are going to the trouble and expense of hiring a private investigator to see whether their boss lives where he says he does.
Well, it makes you wonder whether they're mad at the boss or they're truly mad at where he lives. So, I mean, they probably have to work out that issue, too.
Yeah, and somebody did say they thought it was sour grapes on behalf of the workers who were trying to go after this guy.
Yeah, well, we'll hear more about that, I'm sure. We'll leave it there. When we come back, David Williams, CEO and President of Leadership Memphis, will be here right after this.
I'm Local 24 meteorologist Chelsea Chandler. Before you get your kids ready for school each day, make sure you catch my bus stop forecast so they're prepared throughout the day. It's weekdays on Good Day Memphis, 5 to 7.
The bus stop forecast on Good Day Memphis is brought to you by NST.
Cigna knows you're more than just a number. That's why Cigna Medicare Advantage treats you like a whole person, body and mind, for a cost that makes sense for you. Start enjoying more coverage for less. Call 1-855-552-0688. With Cigna, you get medical, dental, vision, and prescriptions in one plan. A team of doctors for your overall health, and healthy living programs to save you money. Plus, no monthly premium and only a $5 specialist copay. Medicare annual enrollment is now. Make sure you have the right plan for the right price. Call now to get your free Medicare Advantage guide and learn how to get a complete plan that fits your budget. Call 1-855-552-0688. That's 1-855-552-0688. Or visit getCignaMedicare.com. Cigna, together all the way.
Everyone who has ever lived has lived here. All of mankind's triumphs and failures. Every moment, every hometown, all here. We start our coverage on the ground and take it to the airwaves, so you always know what's happening in your own world and beyond. We are free TV and radio. We are breaking news. We are always there. We are broadcasters.
Yummy lip balm. Yummy lip balm? My lips get so dry and cracked, I need serious relief. That's why I use O'Keeffe's Lip Repair. It's all-day moisture in one use and is guaranteed relief for extremely dry, cracked lips. Thanks to O'Keeffe's, I got my lips back.
All All right, Otis and I are joined now by David Williams. He is president and CEO of Leadership Memphis, an organization that's been around more than 40 years, always trying to encourage discussion about what can make us a better community, a better place to live. And you had a big gathering this week talking about diversity in the media, which I think is always something that's worth talking about. And even though this may be a little inside baseball to the folks at home, it's relevant, it's pertinent, not only just to the media, but other industries too. And also, Otis, you know, it's only fair that that when people watch the news and read their newspaper or whatever they read online, that they are hearing from voices that are reporting on events that reflect the community they're in. And I think that's why you wanted to have the conference you did this week.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Richard, yeah. I mean, our organization was actually founded around the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion. Our mission is about preparing and mobilizing leaders to work together for the good of the whole community. So when we have an opportunity once a year to do our annual multicultural breakfast, it's always a combination of fun, but interesting to come up with a new theme. And in the past, we've done education, economic development, faith, the arts, the justice system, and so last year, when we finished the breakfast last year, I turned to Otis. I said, you know, we should do the media. And so that's what we decided to do.
So what was the conclusion from this gathering? How are we doing, at least in the Memphis media market, on that issue?
Well, obviously, I think nobody will say that they have arrived. But they did talk about a lot of the steps that they have taken to make sure that newsrooms around the city have, first of all, diversity, but again, beyond diversity, we want to make sure that voices of all stripes are heard and listened to and acted on within a newsroom. Lisa Lovell, the news director here, talked about that. So did Mark Russell at the Commercial Appeal, James Overstreet at the Daily Memphian, and of course, Ruby Bailey from the University of Missouri, your alma mater.
Yeah, she must have been fantastic.
She was fabulous. But again, I think all of them agree, and I have some connection with just about all of that group over a period of time, and I see that they definitely are thinking about and working on diversity, inclusion, and equity in everything that they try to do. It's part of the fabric of Memphis, as David said. It's the thing that got Leadership Memphis started. And I think news organizations understand it's not just a business imperative, as we said the other day. It's a journalism imperative as well. And I think all the people on that panel agreed to that.
Well, you know, I hear from news managers all over the country that I stay in touch with who will say, you know, one big challenge is that more and more journalism graduating classes are 55, 60, 65% female. So it's hard to find men of any color to work. And a lot of that is because journalism is in such turmoil right now. It's not paying as much as it used to. It's hard to have a family. And the challenge is sometimes finding minorities because there's so many other good jobs out there that pay a lot more than journalism.
Well, and that's a good point, and I don't know how David looks at this from the outside looking in, but the way I see it, again, I'm at the University of Memphis. University of Memphis has a very, very diverse student body. That's campus-wide, but certainly in the Department of Journalism and Strategic Media as well. We do have the issue, there are a lot more females than males, but we have a healthy group of males as well, and those folks are out there getting jobs. They may not be in a newsroom, but they may be doing PR or advertising and somewhere around the city and beyond. So we are blessed in Memphis to have that diversity pool to choose from.
And I think, you know, if we look at it as a system, you're right. It has to start with where do the journalists of the future come from? Right. And it has to start in our education system. So, yeah. Right.
What other conclusions did you come to after having all these leaders in the Memphis media industry talk about this issue?
I think we were able to convey one of the things we hope to convey, which is while we may have had a spotlight on the media today, diversity, equity, inclusion behind the headlines, pretty much anything that was covered today would be applicable to anything else, any other industry or sector in our community.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I think the thing that we tried to leave them with, I know I did, was that the media are not this ivory tower entity where the viewers and the readers don't feel like they have access to. We're always looking to hear from what viewers and readers have to say. We welcome their input. We like talking to them out in the community. We like going out into the community. A lot of the people on the panel talked about having town hall meetings and things of that nature. So I think the main thing that I wanted them to understand is that media organizations are not unapproachable. They are very approachable, and they listen to the criticisms, but also the compliments that they get and the suggestions that come through the transom.
I agree with you, and it would seem to suggest that maybe we're not the enemy of the American people.
Absolutely not. I want to make sure that that's clear.
Got a few seconds left. Go ahead, Wayne.
They overlaid it all with trust.
Yes, that's right.
The media wants to be trusted, therefore we're accessible.
That's exactly.
That's very important if you're going to have that trust feeling. All right, very good. That's going to do it for this segment. I appreciate you coming in and talking to us.
Thank you, Richard.
Good luck with Leadership Memphis. You always do such a great job. We'll be right back right after this. Thank you, Otis.
Make tomorrow awesome with Xfinity. Call 1-800-341-0707 today and do what you love online with Xfinity Internet for only $20 a month for 12 months. Xfinity delivers the internet speed you need to surf, stream, and download. Plus, with Norton Security Online, your family will get advanced online protection. And it's included at no additional cost. Call 1-800-341-0707 today and get speed, security, and value from Xfinity for an amazing price. Xfinity delivers reliably fast internet speed and the best in-home Wi-Fi experience. Get started with Xfinity Internet for just $20 a month for 12 months. It's all backed by our 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's risk-free. Experience speed at a great low price from Xfinity. Call 1-800-341-0707. That's 1-800-341-0707. Xfinity, the future of awesome.
January 20, 2017. Donald Trump takes office, and Democrats take to the street to demand he be removed from office. 10 days later, liberal attorneys general went to court to block Trump's agenda on border security. Jim Hood was with the liberals. Hood took Trump to court, but he refused to challenge Obama even one time. Now liberals are impeaching Trump. Do you stand with our president and Tate Reeves, or with the liberals and Jim Hood? Mississippi, it's time to choose.
America's veterans are more than a source of pride. They're a source of strength. When our veterans thrive, our communities thrive. With your support, our veterans can get career and education opportunities as well as benefits they've earned.
Hello, I'm Congressman David Kustoff. Join me in thanking our nation's veterans. They've given so much in service to our country. Find out how you can support veterans in our community.
This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Well, we covered a lot of ground here today, so if you'd like to weigh in on what you've seen or future topics as well, we'd love to hear from you. My email is rransom@localmemphis.com, rransom@localmemphis.com. And thanks again to Otis and David for being here and for you at home for watching. We'll see you next week for Local 24 This Week.